We are like the Titanic. I'll explain in a minute. What happened in Russia? What's happening with Hunter Biden? We have a great show coming up tonight on I'm Right. Oh, yes. Joe Biden, Hunter Biden. I have so much I want to say. Before we get into this Hunter Biden stuff and Joe Biden stuff and IRS, Merrick Garland, DOJ cover-ups, let's talk about the Titanic for a quick moment. Just stay with me. No, I'm not talking about that little mini sub who blew up. Just stay with me. Obviously, most people have seen the movie. So that's the extent of their knowledge about the Titanic. But if you ever read the story, all kinds of fascinating aspects to it. But one of the frustrating aspects to the Titanic is the lack of urgency initially when the Titanic was going to sink. Some people knew it was going to sink, and they needed to get people onto the lifeboats and get as many people as they possibly could in the lifeboats. But there was such a lack of urgency. It just wasn't, well, we don't want this one to be too full. Take your time. Hey, no rush. I guess you can get to the lifeboat. Maybe grab a drink first. And you reading about it, me reading about it, in hindsight, we look and we're like, hurry up. You can save more people. Hurry up. But they won't hurry up. This is my frustration with where we are right now as a country. Right now, there are dire, drastic, horrific things happening. They're forming up before our eyes. And when they're done forming up, when they're complete, they're going to tear apart this country like nothing you've ever seen. And the right, virtually all of it, almost everyone in the GOP, virtually everyone on the right, they don't seem to realize it. They don't seem to realize the urgency. They don't seem to be able to see with their eyes what is happening. Let's deal with this IRS thing real quick, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. What do we have? The latest and greatest from the IRS. Whistleblower allegations, specific whistleblower allegations against the Biden family. No, not just Hunter Biden, not just the dirtball crackhead son, specific allegations. Allegations like this text message Hunter Biden sent to a Chinese associate in 2017. I'm going to read this verbatim. I'm sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. That's the payoff. That's bribery. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. And if I get a call or text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows, and my ability to forever hold a grudge that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Shortly after that text message, Hunter Biden's firm, he has a firm, got $5.1 million. The President of the United States of America, the President, not just his son, the President, they are bought off and bribed by China. Now, before we even move on to the system and damage control and how the right doesn't understand what's happening, let's take a moment and breathe that in. Let's marinate on that for a moment. As China makes massive moves around the globe, as China makes moves in South America, Africa, they're swarming Taiwan, setting up a military base or a spy base in Cuba. As China is aggressively moving, the commander-in-chief of the United States of America is limited in stopping them at all. Why? Because think of the blackmail material in possession that Xi Jinping is in possession of. Think what he has on Joe Biden and his dirtball son, Hunter Biden. The commander-in-chief is compromised. He must be removed from office now. He has to be removed and impeached from office now. Corinne Diversity Hire and John Kirby are struggling with this one.
You've stated that the president stands by his comment from the 2020 campaign that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with his son. And you stood at that podium and you reaffirmed that. Do you stand by your reaffirmation?
What I will say is nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And I will leave it there. Anything else, I will refer you to the White House counsel.
This is not a change?
I just answered the question. You just asked me, does my statement change? I just told you nothing has changed. That's answering the question.
Does this not undermine the president's claim during the 2020 campaign and the reaffirmations of that claim by his two press secretaries since then, that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with him?
No, and I'm not going to comment further on this.
We're good.
I'm not. James, let me save you some. Let me save you some breath. If you're going to ask about this, I am not addressing. I know you do more than I'd like you to have. I am not going to address this issue from this podium. I'm just not going to do it.
All right.
I'm not going to do it.
Where was the president on the day of that
Thank
speech?
you. Thanks, guys. Have a great
Son was at
weekend.
the father's house.
Ouch, right? How bad is it? Well, how did all this Hunter Biden stuff start? Well, for one, he was deducting payments to hookers off his taxes. That's kind of funny, but still, deducting payments to hookers off of his taxes. I'm not making that up. We know that an assistant U.S. attorney prevented an investigation into him. We know that U.S. Attorney David Weiss tried to investigate Hunter Biden and bring a stronger case against him. And wrap your mind around this, the DOJ twice stopped that investigation. So now we have Merrick Garland, who should have appointed a special counsel for all this, instead running cover. The top law enforcement man in the United States of America, the Attorney General of the United States, is using the DOJ as a protection racket for Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. Merrick Garland was even recommended. The IRS recommended that he bring charges, and Merrick Garland said, what? Charges, huh? Wrong number. That's the situation as a country. And Merrick Garland's response to all this was pretty telling.
I certainly understand that some have chosen to attack the integrity of the Justice Department and its components and its employees by claiming that we do not treat like cases alike. This constitutes an attack on an institution that is essential to American democracy and essential to the safety of the American people. Nothing could be further from the truth.
We know it's true. He's spitting in our face. In just the last few years, we've watched the FBI, DOJ, we've watched the system weaponize itself against the enemies of the Democrats. We are watching the end of the United States of America as we know it. We are watching the beginning of the end. This is how countries end. And what has the response been? Let's just go over some of the GOP responses as the Titanic sinks beneath the waves. If the whistleblower allegations are true, this will be a significant part of a larger impeachment inquiry into Merrick Garland's weaponization of the DOJ. That sounds a whole lot to me like maybe we'll get to it. Who knows? We're looking into it. Hey, don't worry, guys. We're looking into it. And let's keep in mind that a lot of this stuff that happened in the DOJ, a lot of the really dirty stuff, especially at the FBI, didn't actually happen under Merrick Garland. It happened under Trump Attorney General Bill Barr. And need I remind you about this little gem from Bill Barr, which is him stepping up to the microphone and saying, I'm not doing anything back to them.
Those who broke the laws will be held to account. But this cannot be, and it will not be, a tit-for-tat exercise. We are not going to lower the standards just to achieve a result. The only way to stop this vicious cycle, the only way to break away from a dual system of justice is to make sure that we scrupulously apply the single and proper standard of justice for everybody.
Slow down. There's no need to rush to the lifeboat. Hey, did you forget your favorite coat back in your room? Oh, go get it. You've got time. No big deal. Slow down. Nobody on the right seems to understand it. People call me an extremist. Jesse, it's too far. You're being extreme. When I call for things like AGs, state AGs in red states, when I call for them to begin bringing charges, indicting prominent Democrats and Democrat donors, people reach out to me and say, that's too far. Jesse, what are you talking about? Do you understand that I'm the moderate trying to save this country from what's coming? I'm the moderate. But nobody on the right, nobody seems to understand how evil this system is and what they're doing and what they're going to do. Even Trump, who should understand it more than anybody, because these people are going to lock him in a cage for the rest of his life. Even Trump doesn't seem to understand what he's dealing with.
If I wasn't running, or if I was doing badly in the polls, all of this investigation would stop immediately.
No, Mr. President, it wouldn't. You could drop out of the race tomorrow and televise yourself getting on your knees, begging these communists for forgiveness, and they would still string you up figuratively from the city walls to make an example of you, Mr. President. No one seems to understand how evil and serious these people are. They're going to throw Donald Trump in prison, maybe for the rest of his life. And there's almost nothing he can do to stop it now. It's still treated as some kind of a campaign event, a campaign rally thing. These people mean business, and he's not the last Republican they're going to throw in a cage. But hey, maybe that's too extreme. Everyone calm down. Take it easy. No need to rush to the lifeboats. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. What in the world happened in Russia over the weekend? What a weird place. We'll discuss that very briefly. Now let's discuss something else. Let's discuss Father Time. He is undefeated, is he not? How many days do you wake up now and you got pains somewhere? My knee, my neck, my elbow, my shoulder hurts. It's part of life, man. And what do? I've done it a million times. I'm not judging you. What do? Head right to the pantry, grab that bottle of ibuprofen. Oh man, my knee hurts. Let me just wreck my liver with a few of these things. We've got to stop doing this, especially when we have revolutionary relief. It's right there for us. It's a topical you can put on, works. Also, gel caps you pop for all those interior aches and pains. You're not going to believe how pain-free you can be without the ibuprofen. They believe in this so much they give it to you for a month for free. That's belief. You have to go to revrelief.com/free. revrelief.com/free. Go live pain-free, all right? We'll be back.
This is a criminal, adventuristic campaign. It is equivalent to armed mutiny. Russia will defend itself and repel this inimical move.
Okay. I don't understand Russia at all. Something happened over the weekend. Wagner Group, a bunch of Russian mercenaries is what they are. They were marching on Moscow. They weren't marching on Moscow. Then they stopped. I don't know if they got a flat tire. Then they turned around and went back. And I don't ever understand what's going on over there. I bet Jerry does. I bet Jerry understands something. Joining me now, my buddy Jerry Dunleavy. He's the author of a book with my other friend, James. And they wrote a book about what Joe Biden did in Kabul, about the disaster, about our warriors who we've forgotten about. And I want to encourage you to honor them. Go pick this up and find out about it. They deserve to have their stories remembered, right? And the people who did that to them deserve to have their stories remembered too. So anyway, we'll get back to the book in a few. Jerry, what happened in Russia? I don't understand that place.
Yeah, so over the weekend, the head of Russia's Wagner Group, which is essentially a private mercenary group that works for the Russian government, his name's Prigozhin. And he's been highly critical of the Russian Defense Ministry for a long time now, for how the Russian invasion of Ukraine has gone. Because It hasn't gone exactly how I think Putin would have wanted. And it hasn't gone how the U.S. predicted, by the way. The U.S. basically predicted that Ukraine would fall in a few days, and obviously that hasn't happened. It's still a terrible war, lots of people dying on both sides. But Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner group, seems to have had enough. The Russian Defense Ministry was trying to get the Wagner group to essentially dissolve, to agree to fold under the Russian Defense Ministry. The Wagner group and Prigozhin didn't want that. And so Prigozhin embarked on what he called his March of Justice, where he marched a column of tens of thousands of his troops out of Ukraine and into Russia. Half of them went to a Russian city called Rostov, and the other half made it to about 150 miles outside of Moscow before they stopped and turned around. So pretty crazy times. You had a lot of so-called Russia experts who did not see this coming. When it started to happen, basically started to predict things like a Russian civil war. And then as quickly as this all started, it ended. So more to be seen here, but I just think that this is sort of perhaps a humbling moment that what's going on there in Russia is complicated, to say the least. And if I might add, the big point and the broader point about all of this is that, in my opinion, none of this should be happening. Joe Biden completely failed when it came to deterring this war, this Russian invasion of Ukraine. And as a point that we make in our book is that a big piece of why it failed, outside of many decisions that Joe Biden made related to Russia that were just mind-boggling, but his debacle in Afghanistan, this just debacle in Afghanistan that left, obviously the Taliban and members of Al-Qaeda running the country, thousands of Americans left behind, tens of thousands of Afghan allies left behind, and of course, 13 American U.S. service members killed in an ISIS-K attack that never had to happen. That debacle, I think, is what essentially gave Putin that final boost that he needed to decide to invade. And now we have this terrible, destructive, dangerous war happening, and it's just something that never had to happen.
It's terrible. It is a meat grinder, from what I understand, too, an artillery war. And it's just it's a horrible state of affairs. It's a minor detail, but I am curious, Jerry. This Russian Wagner group general, Pierogi or whatever his name is, what was his axe to grind with how Russia has actually conducted the war? What aren't they doing that he thinks they should be doing?
Right. So basically, he's had a bone to pick with the defense ministry for a while. I mean, if you've been following Russia's invasion, it obviously has not gone the way that they wanted. They called it basically a special military operation at the start of this because the Russians thought that they were just going to roll over and potentially take even the capital city of Kiev within a few days, and that didn't happen. Prigozhin heading the Wagner group, it's basically his opinion that if everybody was doing what the Wagner group was doing, then things would be going better. And he kind of pointed out, I was able to march my column of troops from Ukraine to 150 miles outside of Moscow in like a day. So I was able to kind of do what the Russian military wanted to do in Ukraine. I was able to do that in Russia. And that's kind of the argument that he's making. Whether that argument has any merit. Has the Wagner group been doing better in Ukraine than the rest of the Russian military? I mean, on balance, yeah. But this is just kind of his thing. And what is he ultimately trying to get out of this? That remains to be seen. A lot of people are saying that Putin looks a lot weaker because of this, and I think Putin does look weaker because of this. But ultimately, will Putin be weaker because of this? And will Prigozhin survive this? Will Prigozhin be way stronger now in Russia, or is Prigozhin going to, mysteriously fall out of a, hotel window in a few months? Who knows? It just remains to be seen. Nobody knows. Anyone that's saying that they know exactly what's going to happen, they they're lying to you. They just don't know.
Yeah, strange things happen to those Russians. I remember that oligarch who was found hanging from his shower curtain on his yacht in the Mediterranean by his own belt. So things definitely happen down there. All right, Antony Blinken, China, Taiwan. Here's what he had to say, Jerry.
On Taiwan, I reiterated the long-standing U.S. One China policy. That policy has not changed. It's guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, the 6 assurances. We do not support Taiwan independence. We remain opposed to any unilateral changes to the status quo by either side.
Okay, Jerry, I am concerned about Russia and China working together. This dragon bear, that seems a little overdramatic, but this dragon bear alliance or whatever the case may be. How close are they? How close are they going to get? And what's happening with Taiwan?
Yeah, I mean, the dragon bear is a problem. Russia and China have been growing closer, especially militarily, in the last, you can really trace it back a couple of decades. But, they put together what they called this no limits partnership in February 2022. And this was weeks before Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine. And I might add, it was just a few months after Biden's debacle in Afghanistan. And I just think you can trace a direct line from Biden's screw up in Afghanistan to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But yeah, this growing military alliance is a problem. And China wants to invade Taiwan. They want it back. This has been their goal for a very long time. And Xi Jinping has kind of made this a focal point of his dictatorial leadership of China. He just got a new term leading the CCP, and he's kind of said, I'm going to resolve this one way or the other before I'm done. And it's a dangerous situation. We just saw the Biden administration completely fail to deter Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And China is backing Russia in its invasion of Ukraine, in part, I think, because they want Russia on their side when they decide to try and take Taiwan. And, the reality is that the Biden administration is not doing nearly enough to prepare the United States, if we're going to try and stop this invasion, to deter China. And Taiwan is just not ready as well. I went on a trip to South Korea and Taiwan with a congressional delegation earlier this year. I love Taiwan. Seems like a great country, great people, but they're just not ready. If China decides to invade, and the United States isn't ready either. We're just not ready for a war like this. And so a big consequence of the war in Ukraine is that I think personally it is good to stop Russia from taking Ukraine. But we need to be able to do 2 things at once. We need to be preparing for what China wants to do, which is take Taiwan. And obviously our eye is completely off the ball. We're not getting ready. And it's a problem because it's something that Xi wants to do.
Tell me about this book, Jerry. Why'd you write it? You and James Hassan. Why'd you write it?
Yeah. So, James Hassan, great guy, great friend of mine. He did a tour in Afghanistan. So he's a former Army captain. So he's seen this thing on the ground. My brother, he's in the Army. He's done numerous tours in Afghanistan. Obviously, James and I have a lot of friends who have served there. And James has friends that lost their lives there. James and I take the war personally. And this was an absolute disaster. James and I both saw it coming. The way that Biden did the withdrawal, there was pretty much no other result that could happen except for this debacle. And, the situation that these U.S. service members were put in, a lot of them Marines, the situation they were put in, where we, basically the Biden administration, at the end of this, all that we had was this little airport in the middle of Kabul, and our troops are completely surrounded by the Taliban, who have taken over the entire country. And we've got ISIS-K terrorists running around as well. And our service members are tasked with getting out all of the Americans that are stuck all over Afghanistan. And they also have to get out all these Afghan interpreters and allies that we made these promises to. And this task that they were given was just an impossible task, impossible logistically and impossible in terms of the danger that we put these guys in. And of course, it results in 13 of these service members getting blown up by an ISIS-K terrorist, and dozens of these service members, I want people to remember, were also wounded, some of them very seriously for the rest of their lives. And so this is a debacle. And we dedicate the book to the 13 U.S. service members who were killed there, and to all of the other thousands of Americans who were killed in Afghanistan over 20 years. And, I don't want to say put aside that disaster, because you can't put it aside. We want it at the forefront, because people have forgotten. Joe Biden doesn't want to talk about this. He has never said the names of the 13 U.S. service members out in public before. And then, of course, the world has become a more dangerous place after this. Russia invaded Ukraine, and China has taken advantage of the situation by becoming much more dangerous too. So I think that we highlight a lot of things that people never knew. We unearthed a lot of new details that I think will shock and surprise people, and we encourage people to buy it to help keep this alive, because Joe Biden wants you to forget this, and you shouldn't forget it. Can't forget it.
No, you shouldn't forget it. Go buy that book. Go buy that book. Kabul is the name. Jerry, thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Thanks as always, Jesse. Really appreciate it, man.
You're good, man. All right. We got a little bit of yucky pride stuff coming. Don't worry. It'll be okay. We have to address some culture war stuff. It's not going away. Let's first address your finances. No, I'm not your stockbroker. I don't know anything about that. I do know this. Things you can touch and feel. That's what you should be buying right now. Why do you think banker friend of mine, buying up gold right now? Speaking of China, why do you think China is buying up all the gold they can put their hands on right now? Do you think these people, these entities might know something? You need gold and silver, or silver, in your physical possession. You need it as part of your 401k and IRA. Call Oxford Gold Group, because they're so laid back and they can handle all this for you. And it sounds complicated. I would never be able to do it. They can't. It's nothing for them. It's super easy. All you have to do is call 833-995-GOLD and let them take care of you, all right? 833-995-GOLD. We'll be back. All right. It's time to lighten the mood. We're going to lighten the mood with The Blob. No, not that classic horror movie. I don't know why no one could escape the blob that was barely going down. Anyway, not that. A better blob. A more fun blob. Before we get to that blob, let's talk about you and the air you breathe. There are viruses and mold in your air. That's the way it is. They're in our air. Your air needs clean. The air inside of your home needs clean. Where you sleep, your bedroom, that air needs clean. Your living area, kitchen, where you work, the air needs cleaned. Those odors you smell, that's because there's stuff in the air that shouldn't be there. Let Eden Pure Thunderstorm clean your air. Do in your home the same thing nature does after a thunderstorm. That's why you walk outside after a storm and it smells so good. Your air's been cleaned, scrubbed. Eden Pure sells 3 packs, $200 off right now. You have to go to EdenPureDeals.com, code Jesse to get that. EdenPureDeals.com, code Jesse, all right? All right, without further ado, the blob. You know, I bet that was fun at liftoff. And then I bet there was a moment right at the peak where they looked down and saw, that's going to hurt. When I got a little too high, and when I land, that's going to hurt. I'll see you tomorrow.